And well, so Nick, welcome again to the transformation journey. It's been, as I told you, almost 2 years since we first recorded an episode, and many things have happened since then for you, for big thinkers, for me, and in the world as well. And yeah, I would like you to, just start sharing, maybe start sharing what has been an experience or an adventure that you've loved from these past 2 years that you wanna share.
Cool. Well, Emiliano, you know that I love talking to you, man. I think you're incredibly inspirational to me, and I think you're incredibly smart. And I love our conversation. So
Yeah,
when
so
you
do I.
brought up this idea again, I was like, yeah, I'd love to jump on and chat with you. And so the last 2 years have been pretty crazy, but also pretty special. I've learned a lot. Book Thinkers has grown a lot as a business. I've grown a lot as a digital nomad and as just a human being. And so, what was your question? It was like, what's one experience that sticks out?
Yeah, or one adventure or one trip, for example. You went to Colombia, right? How was that?
Yeah, I went to Colombia last year for 3 months with Rachel, and then Ryan jumped in for a little bit. My friend Joel jumped in for a little bit. My friend Tom visited for like a full month. So we had a really fun experience. Colombia is an amazing country, and I went last year, like I said, for 3 months, January, February, and March. And the weather was amazing. We did all these fun adventures. Like we rode horses in the mountains of Medellin, and we went snorkeling in the waters outside of Cartagena and everything in between. I also went to a fun little island called San Andres, which is
Hmm.
in the Caribbean. That's a Colombian territory with my friend Joseph and his girlfriend Julie. So I brought tons of people down there, and we had so many cool experiences. And I love the food, the culture, the people. Studying Spanish, obviously, I'm
Hmm.
still learning slowly. Estoy aprendiendo despacio, and yeah, it was a really cool experience. And you know what? This is the thing that people picture all of the time, and it's exactly what I love. Is waking up in the morning when I'm in South America and walking to a local coffee shop and ordering like the best Colombian coffee ever, and then just cracking open a book and reading for 2 hours every morning. And that's the digital nomad lifestyle, right? Or open up my laptop and work from a coffee shop all day or a restaurant. And when I think about the 4 Hour Work Week or Vagabonding by Ralph Potts, which are two of my favorite books, those are the moments that stick out to me. Like I get emotional about it. I get excited. I long for more of that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And Colombia, I was able to do that for like 3 straight months, 90 straight days. It was really cool.
And then I remember that some months ago when we were actually recording an episode for the Book Talk Lounge about the 4 Hour Work Week. Well, you were sharing this experience of yours, and you also like mentioned this, uh, your take on and your perspective on living here in South America as an American. And we talked about like the cultural differences, the economical differences, and all of that. But I'm curious, like, what's your take or your perspective on like South America and like, yeah, living here instead of living in America, in the United States right now?
Well, I think it's a great move. We talked a little bit about, yeah, I remember we talked a little bit about earning in dollars,
Hmm.
spending in pesos, and then compensating your workforce in rupees, which is like the Indian currency.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing to be able to do just because of the differences in currency and how they're valued. The US dollar is a very strong currency no matter where you go on planet Earth.
Hmm.
And so, if I earn $10 here, that might be 2 cups of coffee in the US. But if I earn $10 here and I'm spending it while I'm in Colombia, that might be 10 cups of coffee.
Hmm.
So it's a really big difference. If you can earn in dollars and then as a digital nomad spend in countries where your dollar goes a lot further, you can live a better lifestyle with the same amount of money. So it's all relative. And in terms of cultural differences and how to do it, I mean, the United States is a huge country, just like
Hmm.
Mexico is a huge country. And there are cultural differences depending on where you are in the US. But I think in general, what I've experienced as a US citizen traveling in Central and South America is that everybody in Central and South America is just happy to see us, and, very inviting and warm. And like in Colombia specifically, everybody greets you when they walk by you. They look for eye contact. They like to wave. They like to say hello and ask you how you're doing. Whereas in most parts of the US, when you're walking around, people try to avoid eye contact, or they pull out their phone and they're looking at it. It's less like present, less friendly sometimes up here. So I love when we're living in Central and South America.
Yeah, about that, some like a month ago, I was running at school, so well outside my school, and I was just like greeting, saying hello to people, just cause. What would you say would happen like in your city if you just went by running in the park, saying hello to people that you don't know, saying good morning to them?
Yeah, I think some people would say hello back and probably be a little startled, and then some people would be like, "What's wrong with that guy?"
Hmm.
And it's funny. And then speaking of speaking of travel, Rachel and I on June 10th, so coming up here in just about 2 weeks, we're leaving for about 5 weeks in Europe, and we're doing a bunch of different countries. And so I haven't spent a lot of time in Europe, but I'm excited to see, I've spent a lot of time in Central and South America as well as the Caribbean islands,
Hmm.
but I haven't spent a lot of time in Europe yet. I've only visited 2 countries before. So we're doing 6 countries this time. And I can't wait to just see what the cultural differences are over there.
Where are you going?
So rough itinerary. I mean, it's all planned. It's just planned by Rachel, and it's only
Uh-huh.
lightly in my head. But we're doing something like 8 or 9 days in Iceland. Then we're doing 4 days in Dublin, Ireland. Then we're doing, I think, about 10 days in the Greek islands as well as Athens.
Hmm.
Then we're going to Italy, and we're splitting our time between Rome. I can't wait to like see the Marcus Aurelius statues and stuff in Rome. And then we're going to I think like the south of Italy where Naples is. I don't even know if that's south, but we're going to Naples, Italy. Then we're going to Paris, France, and then we're going to London. So that's our trip.
Nice. Yeah, about going to Europe. As I told you, I will be there this summer, and like I'm saving, uh, well, to have some cash to spend there, and it's like pretty fun and interesting to see how like saving 50 pesos here, it's just like 2 euros. So I mean, like for six cups of coffee, I spent maybe $10, and that will be like just two or three in Europe. So that's something interesting as well, like to see how the like the coin changes depending on where you are, and as you said, like it's relative how much you earn and how much you're able to spend depending on where you are. And actually that's something pretty interesting that I've learned about recently when I hear about like Mexicans that go to the United States to earn in US dollars to then send the money back to their families here in Mexico. And I mean, when you do that, or when like the families are earning in US dollars or are receiving money in that coin, they are able to spend it well here. But I'm not sure like how that lifestyle for the person working there looks like, because I mean they earn in US dollars, but they are also spending in US dollars. So I mean,
Yeah, it's probably tough, and that's why I try to practice gratitude and give thanks for the lifestyle that I have. And I was born in the United States. I didn't choose that, so I'm very fortunate for that. Um, so yeah, I mean, inside of the United States, it changes so much too. Like Rachel and I right now, we're talking about location, location, location. Like where you live in the United States matters a lot, because I'm in the Boston, Massachusetts area, which is very expensive.
mhm.
But you go down to Florida or Texas, and you might be able to buy a house that's literally for the same cost, 2 to 3 times as big, 2 to 3 times as big for the same amount of money. And so it's relative within the United States as well. Massachusetts has a higher income tax on what you make individually. Florida and Texas have zero income tax. So there are some big differences, all over the planet, but I guess that's a good thing for everybody listening
Hmm.
to pay attention to. There's always going to be relativity. And if you choose to be in a country that has super high expenses and you're in a super high area, you're double dipping in the wrong direction. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's why we like to live in inexpensive areas. And when we're traveling, leverage currencies that the US dollar weighs against in a really positive way.
What do you think about being a digital nomad and using this type of leverage? And this Web3 thing and the decentralized economy and using also NFTs and cryptocurrency and this decentralized platforms.
Oh man, you probably know more than I do about Web3. I still have a lot to learn. I think it's exciting, and I would love for everybody on this planet to wake up one day and be on an even playing field, because there's some sort of centralized currency that everybody can buy into almost at the same rate. And that would be a really cool thing, you know. But I don't own any NFTs. I do own and invest in crypto a little bit, but I just, I still have so much to learn about what's coming next. It sounds kind of goofy. It's like I know if I got into it today, I'd be better off tomorrow, but I'm sort of still living in today's economy.
Yeah, today's economy is still pretty centralized, and I mean, I haven't learned a lot about Web3 either, but from what I've learned and read and heard, like it's a pretty cool idea or vision to be able to have this digital decentralized platforms work for you, so that then you can maybe move to Colombia if like stuff gets difficult in the US, or then just to take a flight to Europe and stay there in a hostel for I don't know, 1 month or so. But I mean, it's kind of exciting, and I guess that it could be more effective, or at least work better for more people, like globally, than Web 2 and like the current technologies and platforms.
Yeah, yeah. And relating it to digital, like to being a digital nomad specifically, I think even today, like the lifestyle that I choose, when people are asking, oh, like Rachel and I went to a casino. So we did a month in Panama this
Mhm.
year. And I remember we were at a casino. I love playing blackjack whenever we have some extra time. And we were at a casino, and the guy next to me said, oh, how long are you here for? And I said, about a month. What about you? And he's like, a month? How are you here for a month? I was like, oh, well, we just work remotely. He's like, how? It's still such a strange concept to some people who can only travel to certain places. Like he was from the US,
Mhm.
who can only travel internationally for a couple days at a time because they think it's super expensive and it's not sustainable, and they're used to working a 9 to 5 job that's location dependent. And so yeah, you're right, Web3 is going to create a ton of opportunities for people to work remotely all over the planet, and it will only continue to get more normalized. I think today it's still a little bit strange to be able to pack up and leave for 6 weeks or
Mhm.
12 weeks and go live internationally in a place that you don't speak the language. But technology is advancing, and it's just allowing for people who want to travel and who want to see different things. It opens up the door for sure. And even my parents and Rachel's parents, like they'll still, every once in a while make jokes about it or whatever the case is, because it's just when they were growing up, that wasn't realistic. If you wanted to travel and go live in Germany for a month, you'd have to go get a job in Germany as a bartender or
Mhm.
cleaning hotel rooms or something, right? Because otherwise you couldn't afford to be there for a month. You needed to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
So,
wasn't this digital economy that we have today that allows us to be able to, I mean, live remotely, like you when you want to, and work remotely, and make contacts and connections like this. That's also what I've been thinking about with the transformation journey. Like it's pretty. as I told you, that's like one of my main uh, intentions with the show, to connect with people further. Um, and people that I cannot connect with, like physically, because they do not live in Mexico City or somewhere uh, near where I am. And then, what do you think about like this change with Web 2 and Web 3 and creating communities? So you've created the Book Thinkers community in Web 2 using Instagram mostly. But yeah, what are your thoughts on how things are changing, and also like on maybe platform changes? I know that you just started also being active on TikTok. Like, what's your take on that?
Well, I think community, I think like from a meta perspective, I think communities are incredibly important. I read a line 6 months ago on the back of a book that said, dollars in Bitcoin aren't the currencies that matter moving forward. It's attention. Attention is the currency that matters the most in the 21st century. And I think that as Web3 continues to develop, attention will continue to be more and more important. And so owning a community, running a community, managing a community, being the central spokesperson for a community will continue to become more and more important. I remember last year walking around and somebody I was talking to said, imagine if like the physical country borders, let's just say between US and Mexico, dissolved and disappeared, right? What's happening now is these communities are being built up in Web 2 and Web 3 on different platforms. And those are the borders that
Hmm.
matter. Like, do you like book thinkers more, or do you like that community more? And so that's an interesting way to think about it. It's like, yeah, you want to be a first mover. You want to start developing communities on these different platforms, because in the future, that'll matter even more than it matters today. People used to laugh at, oh, 20 people are in your Facebook group. Well, now if you've got 20,000 people in your Facebook group, that's your own economy.
Hmm.
I'm wearing a sweatshirt from a conference that I just went to,
Hmm.
CYOE. It stands for Create Your Own Economy. Yeah, you want to have your own economy because it can provide a lifestyle that supports you and you can positively impact other people. So, in terms of Web3 and community, I still have so much to learn.
Hmm.
Book thinkers will continue to grow and have communities in different places. And I'm not sure what that'll look like in the future, but I'm open to it. That's for sure. We've got a Discord now, which is new. We've also got TikTok, which is new. And I'm sure whatever the next thing is, will be on there.
What do you think about like well, for example, you just started on TikTok, so you've got like what 15,000 followers there. So
Something like that. Yeah.
you've got 15,000 there, and then like 130 something thousand on Instagram. What do you think about like the size of communities and how important that is? Because I mean, there might be people who haven't got a very big community, but they've got the right people in their community, so they can create their own economy from just a group of maybe 10 or 20 people. But then there are also this maybe much bigger influencers who have got millions of followers, but who are not monetizing what they do correctly, because the people in their community are just like watching what they're doing, not necessarily getting involved. So what's like your perspective on that, like on the size of the community?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's one that I wish a lot of people thought more about. So I don't think the size of the community matters. I mean, I was at this conference last week and the host of the conference sold a mastermind. He sold 15 tickets at $7,000 a piece US. He did $105,000 in revenue in 10 minutes, right?
Whoa.
That's only 15 people in his community, but he did $100,000 in 10 minutes. Does the size of his community matter? Not really. He only needed 15 people. But Book Thinkers has 130,000 people in it. And I haven't sold $100,000 worth of services to the community, to authors, yes, but like to the general community, but I've got 1,000 times as many people in there, 10,000 times as many people in there. So that was a really like aha moment for me. Now with TikTok, what's funny is I hired somebody to manage TikTok. So I've never posted on TikTok or anything like that for book thinkers. But and the guy that I hired for it, he's really great at building those communities, but he just doesn't have, he wasn't able to connect the dots of like how to monetize a community like that effectively. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, like to your point, are in that space where a lot of young people understand how to get attention, how to create a video that has a really strong hook that draws somebody in, that creates some type of emotion, and that leaves them feeling like I want more of that, so they'll follow. And a lot of young people can build huge communities, but then like the real world side of it hits where you have to start a legal business entity. You
Mhm.
have to start collecting money in exchange for services and close deals. Then you have to execute against them and keep it all organized. Then you have to follow up with your customers, make sure they're happy, and ask for referrals and grow your business. And then you have to hire people to execute against what you've sold. And so that whole piece is really difficult for like the younger generation to figure out. And then for the older generation, it's like, how do I get that attention in the first place? For me, I'm like, 2 years ago, I was getting 1,000 followers a week on Instagram. Now even with 100,000 people in my community, I can't scrape together 10,000 views on a video. So it changes and you've got to adapt. And like for me, it was, okay, I recognize I'm not good at creating attention anymore. So I need to bring somebody into my community that is, and that person's not good at organizing and selling the business services behind the scenes. I am. So, combine the two. But back to your original question, how big is, how does it matter how big your community is? No, but I would encourage anybody out there that's young and has an audience and that's building to start learning those back end skills so that you can actually make money from your community.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, me as a teenager, I can see many of my friends maybe creating some viral videos. I mean, videos about like Harry Styles, for example, or some other topics, but they know how to go viral, or at least how to create things that will catch people's attention. But then um, they don't necessarily know, as you mentioned, like how to then take those people to another thing, and then create something from that. And that's actually very interesting, because then like synergizing and creating this connections and maybe hiring people and everything actually helps you a lot. I have also been struggling lately with like views and engagement on Instagram. And I mean, it's just tough sometimes, like to uh be able to carry on and push through these tough times, so to call them, um in which, I mean, the socials of the Reader Lounge are not being successful. uh and then like this mindset again of not wanting my community to be that big necessarily, but wanting it to be like formed by the right people. It helps me a lot, and that's also why I'm also getting into TikTok and Twitter and these other platforms. I mean, Instagram, well, being only on Instagram was great 2 years ago, but then times change, and now we need other things. We need to be on other platforms and to create more in different things.
Yeah, we do. And I love that you're being intentional about how specific you want your community to be. And there's a lot of power in that. And listen, you're really young, right? You're not depending on your platforms to create a full-time income for you yet. And so you've got time to figure it out. But yeah, that is a piece of advice for your friends that know how to go viral, is either pair up with somebody that knows how to create money from that, or start taking steps in that direction and learn how to create money for it. Because remember, it's not dollars or Bitcoin that matter as the currency moving forward, it's attention. And if you can create attention in Web 2 or Web 3, like you're going to create a lot of money for yourself. You're going to create your own economy. And that's why for me, when I looked at, book thinkers for a long time was selling packages to authors where they
Mhm.
could leverage our audience, right? But then the organic impressions per post started going down and the community started going down on Instagram. And so it's like, well, I can't continue to increase my prices and sell more
Mhm.
services if the platform itself is dying out a little bit. And so I read a book called $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. It's a really, really good book. And in that book, Alex says, there's basically this value equation that you draw out, and it has four variables. And one of the variables is, what are some of the higher ticket services that you can offer to your target customer? Because he says 20% of your customers are probably willing to pay 5 times more than they currently are. So you can do the same amount of business, but only work with 20% as many people. And I thought, what are some of the higher ticket services? Because I don't want to post on Instagram on behalf of authors anymore. Like, I don't want that to be the main thing that Book Thinkers is doing. And so I listened, and I had some discovery calls with authors and said, like, hey, what do you need help with in your business? And so now Book Thinkers is offering a whole bunch of different services than I was during our last conversation. We're flying out and filming a ton of short form video content for authors, editing those for TikTok and Instagram and whatever comes next, Facebook, YouTube Shorts. And we're doing some PR. So we're booking authors on podcasts. We're even hosting podcasts now, helping authors start them, land guests, edit the podcast, distribute them, things of that nature. And so none of those services would have come to be, which are literally 5 to 10 times as much as the other services were on a monthly or one-time basis. None of those would have come to be if Instagram didn't start to struggle and I didn't start to say, where should I go next? So sometimes the evolution of these platforms, even if it's somewhat negative, forces you to adapt and evolve, and the end result is really positive. So this month, last month, and the month prior to that, we had like 3 months in a row where we had record revenue for Book Thinkers. And it all came because I was pulling my hair out, like, what am I going to do? Instagram's dying. And then boom, now I'm happy that Instagram started to shift in that direction a little bit,
Yeah, the obstacle is the way, and this is a very clear example of that.
The obstacle is the way. Yeah. And so for you, you just said your platform is dying. Do you have any ideas? Not dying, that's an aggressive word, but organic
No, I mean,
engagement and views and stuff are going down.
it kind of is. Well, since the early stage, well, not since the early stages, but I mean, since the first months of the existence of TRL, of the Reader Lounge, I have envisioned the making TRL much more than a book blog. So like I've got this idea of like creating physical reader lounges. So like a mix between coffee shops and libraries and these things. And creating this ecosystem around books with this coffee shop libraries and other products, and maybe even starting to publish books and so on. But I mean, that's like the big picture, my vision for it. But I mean, I cannot start with that right now because I have to start somewhere where it's like viable to start. And right now that's online, so it's what I'm doing. And that's when I started on Instagram and with the book blog. And then last year in December, I was like, okay, I'm done with the book blog. I don't like just being the book blog anymore. I want to start like being something else as the Reader Lounge. I want to start adding value in different ways. And so I created this, well, I was reading Onward by Howard Schultz back then. And there he mentions that when Starbucks was in this very bad stage and they were almost going to disappear, they created this transformation agenda. And so, is that how you pronounce that word? Agenda,
Agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. In Spanish, we just say agenda. So it's just the same with agenda. Agenda. Yeah.
Agenda.
Agenda. Okay.
Agenda.
Agenda. Yeah. But I mean, small pause here. It's fun because like an agenda in Spanish is like it's a journal with dates, and then you just write. I mean, for if you have a meeting and you talk about the agenda for the meeting, you just say like the intention, la intención for the meeting or so.
Mhm.
But I mean that was a small pause. And yeah, so I read about this transformation agenda that they created, and I inspired myself from there to create like this list of things that I wanted to transform inside TRL to start shifting the brand into something else. And so we're in the process of shifting. And so part of that was going beyond Instagram. So that was like the first step, right? Going to TikTok and Twitter and these platforms. And that's also the stage in which we are right now, like changing platforms or being present in more than Instagram. And it's tough as you mentioned, because Instagram is, well, the engagement is dying as well, or it's just at least it's like not growing. um but yeah, that brought me to think about like, okay, I don't like making book promotions the business either, because I mean I don't think it's very sustainable. I don't think it's very scalable, at least the way I did it, and I don't really enjoy it. And so I was thinking, okay, how can I shift, how can I iterate to change how the reader lounge makes business. And so like the main point right now, it's to create like things for the audience. I'm working on creating this like challenges slash cohort based courses, in which I like try to synthesize a lot of information, a lot of value from books into like actionable things. And I mean with that, I'm trying like to create a sort of a funnel to bring people into like the real value of the reader launch, so that afterwards I can create this other parts of the ecosystem and these libraries and coffee shops and these things, so that people like become more involved in the in the brand than just watching a video or reading an article or a tweet storm. And that's like my idea on how I am trying to shift where the reader lounge is going, and especially with these challenges with Instagram. And this brings me to an idea that I heard about yesterday when I was listening to an interview to Jay-Z. And so he's been relevant for a long time. And I was thinking that many people like Snoop Dogg and Kanye and these other musicians have also stayed relevant over many years, like being themselves, although they've changed as well. And that's what I have been thinking about with like the reader lounge. So I have changed a lot as a person, and therefore the reader lounge has changed a lot. But I mean, I think that what's important, again, talking about the audience, is that they stay like loyal to this essence, and the essence is like what like the main message, the main value that I share. What are your thoughts on that? Like how these changes through the journey change how people involve in your life, for example, or also with book thinkers.
No, it makes total sense. I saw that Jay-Z clip too. And it reminds me of Evan Carmichael's framework with Built to Serve: who, why, and how. The who and the why stays the same, but the how can change.
Hmm.
And so for me, my who is progress. I'm motivated by progress. Why? Because I went through this huge transformation. I had a really big inflection point where I went from insecure and full of ego to focused on impact and generosity and fulfillment. And the how was through the Book Thinkers podcast and through Instagram for a long time. All right.
Hmm.
Now the how is changing a little bit because the end result is still the same. I want to connect people to books that can change their lives. I want to spread the positive power of personal development, right?
Hmm.
But instead of doing that myself on social media, right now, my business is enabling authors to do it more effectively themselves.
Hmm.
The end result is that more people get connected to books that can change their lives, right? And so my journey is changing and I'm changing and I'm growing, but the essence is still the same. The who is still progress. The why is still connecting people with the right books that can change their lives, because it happened to me, right? Evan says your purpose comes from your pain.
Hmm.
But the how, the how is going to continue to change. And for me too, I've been working on a book for so long now, and I really just need to like sit down and focus on finishing it. But that's going to be a new how. I'm going to be the author that's connecting people, or trying to connect people with my book that can change their lives. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts on it. And you're right, like it's so hard to stay relevant. There are so many musicians, that's a really easy way to think about it, so many musicians that were relevant for such a short period of time.
Hmm.
And especially in hip hop and rap, like it's almost impossible to stay relevant. There's a Drake lyric that he said recently. He's like, I've been popping since T-Pain was popping bottles or something like that. And it's like, T-Pain hasn't been relevant in 15 years, but Drake has been relevant since T-Pain was relevant. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think a lot about those things. But as long as your essence is the same, you can create that loyalty or the affinity, the trust with your audience, that they just want more of whatever you're involved in. Those are raving fans, people that sing your praises, people that give you feedback, and people that spend money with you. And you just want to create as many of those as you can.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And that there are two things that I would like to unpack from here. So, like the first one is, how do you become unattached to the how so that you can flow through the circumstances and
Mm,
the depth, and just so that I don't forget. The second thing is like, how do you personally think about success in this sense? So, people like Jay-Z or Drake or Kanye, they've been relevant for a very long time, and we could say that they are successful because of that. But we could also say, or maybe they think that they are successful because they have stayed relevant to themselves for all this time, and being relevant to others is a byproduct. So yeah, what are your thoughts on those two things, on staying unattached to the how, and on like defining success in this sense?
dude, I wish I thought about things the way that you do. Back, I'd be in such a different place today. Oh man, you're a smart kid. Okay, so the first question, staying unattached to the how. That's a tough one. I think most people in life, they never even really figure out the first two pieces, the who and the why. And so it's kind of rare to be able to flow through the how, and to keep your business focused on the same like internal essence or mission. And what have I done to stay attached to the how? I think I've realized that I don't determine what's valuable. The world does. That's one of the beautiful things about capitalism, is that it's not up to me what's valuable. Same thing with social media. If you post 10 videos and you really like two of them, but they perform the worst, then they're not valuable to the world. They're not valuable to the audience. It's the audience that gets to determine what's valuable in a capitalistic society. And all social medias follow that model too. Same thing with the services that Book Thinkers provides. I don't get to determine what is valuable to the world, right? I just, my who is progress. My why is that books changed my life. But the how, that's not up to me. That's up to whatever the world wants it to be. And I think I had to lose a lot of ego, which is probably step number one. I had to remove a lot of that. Like, I'm right. I know what's right. No, the world knows what's right. And I just need to listen. They say that we all have two ears and one mouth, and we should use them in that ratio. We should listen more than we speak. And it took me a while to find that space where I'm unattached to the how now. It could be anything. It could be working for Elon Musk building rockets, if that's going to connect people to the right books, right? Like, I'm open to whatever it's going to be. And yeah, I think a lot of us just need to go through that book, Built to Serve, really define the who and the why, so that you understand what motivates you, what keeps you fulfilled, and how you can best impact other people. And then just remove ego and listen and measure. That Peter Drucker line, if you're not measuring something, you can't manage improvement. For the author promotions thing, you kind of, if you're measuring that, you know where it's at. And then if another opportunity opens itself up and you're open to receiving it, you're open to listening, and you don't have too much ego to say, nah, it has to be author promotions, then you can change and become flexible and adapt and then measure it and see if this new how is better than the old how, and then change. So that was the first question. And your second what was your second question?
About success, like refining or defining success in this sense, like being relevant to others or being relevant to yourself, and therefore
Yeah.
having being relevant to others as a product.
There's a quote that one of my mentors, Kevin Horsley, shared with me recently. It was a Wallace D. Waddles quote. He wrote The Science of Getting Rich, I think. And he said, success is getting what you want in life. And I thought that was really interesting, because if you want less, success is a lot easier to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, especially for somebody like Kanye, did you watch that documentary that came out a couple months ago?
Genius, or how is it called?
I think it was, yeah. I'll
I,
have to.
I watched one episode with a friend who's a big fan of Kanye.
One thing that I realized is Kanye, like what determines success for Kanye is just him being himself, you know? He just wants the world to appreciate who he is, and he's not willing to change himself for the world. And like that creates progress. And so I think, yeah, Jay-Z and Kanye and Drake, they have all been criticized. Well, at least I know Kanye and Drake have been like heavily
Mhm.
criticized socially for the way that they do things. Like people always thought Drake was soft, right? And people think Kanye is a lunatic. So, but they've stayed to themselves, and now the world adapts to themselves. Like Kanye is a multi-billionaire, and Drake is the number one rapper in the world and has been for 10 years straight. So, they sort of persisted even throughout the criticism and stayed true to who they are. And I think that, they were probably pretty clear on what success meant to them, because that helps you sort of avoid the noise and block it out.
Hmm.
But success is what you want in life, is getting what you want in life. And if you want less, then it's easier to be successful. Like for me, what is a successful life? It's probably feeding my 5 black sheep values. Shout out Brant Menswar. And that's easy to do. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. I'm happy, I'm fulfilled. If the only thing I wanted in life was $50 million, then I wouldn't be happy today. But
Hmm.
that's a byproduct of, like what you said, being who you are. And that relevancy just is a byproduct of like really leaning into that and communicating it openly.
That's a very interesting description of success, because I was recently reading this book called Little History of Philosophy. I think that's its title. And in a chapter, the author talked about uh, Epicurus. And so like one of the main ideas from Epicurus was to live a simple life, to have simple desires, to have good friends, and I don't remember what the third thing was, but I mean to have simple desires, because that way you will be fulfilled in this sense, and that's a very interesting perspective in it. Because I mean, if you are thankful and grateful just with having the chance to wake up, then everything else is a plus, and then you can be more happy. But then people, as you say, who will only be happy when they have $50 million, won't be happy until then, which is it's something very interesting and hard to learn sometimes. I think.
Yeah, I do too. I remember I was at a conference last year where the host of the conference said that happiness is subtractive. The more you can remove from your desires, the easier it is to be happy and successful. I think it's the same thing. The less you want, like if all you wanted in life was your health. Actually, this reminds me of something Peter Diamandis said during our interview a few months ago. He said, a happy person has 1,000 dreams, but a sick person only has one, which is to be healthy again, right?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
And so, how can you like how can you reduce how many dreams you have so that they're easier to achieve and they still create fulfillment? Like I know with me, I want my friends and family to be healthy and I want to share as much as I can to help them achieve that. I know that I want to be healthy. I know that I want a lifestyle that creates flexibility and allows me and Rachel to travel and have fun and experience new things. I know that I want to positively impact other people by introducing them to books that can change their lives like they did for me. And that's about it. I mean, I'm living it right now. I'm already happy. I've already got those things. And so I don't know. Yeah, so many people want things that are just so difficult to achieve. And listen, I create positive stress in my life all the time, trying to
Mhm.
grow and expand in different directions, but I'm not basing my success or my happiness on those outcomes. That's just to help experience more of what I'm already living. I'm motivated by progress. I'm not dependent on it.
There's this quote. I don't know who said it or who wrote it, but it goes something like the man who likes walking more than the destination will walk further than the man who loves the destination, or something like that. And it also has to do with this. When you enjoy, or when the point is like the same process and living your black sheep, with your case, for example, then the other things are just a byproduct, which is very interesting. And to start wrapping up, what's next in your life and for book thinkers?
Yeah, Book Thinkers is I feel like we finally found a tipping point where we can provide tons of high ticket value to authors, and I can start scaling those services and hiring more. And so I can't wait for our next conversation. Like Q2 was sort of like, all right, let's exercise a bunch of these services, collect feedback, make improvements. I've still got one more month of doing that. And then
Mhm.
Q3 is like, let's upgrade these services, sell a bunch more of them, and then reflect again for Q4. So what's next for Book Thinkers? Like it's just going to grow. The team's going to get bigger, and the number of people that we're going to help in terms of authors and readers is going to go up, positively impact more people, help them make progress. My book is going to come out sometime later this year, which will be on how readers can retain and implement more information from the books they're reading and get more out of them. And so who knows beyond that? I'm not much of like a 12-month or 24-month or 36-month plan guy anymore. I'm just kind of like, the how will always change. You know what I mean? That's a really good way to put it. You articulated it that way. I'm happy that you did. Yeah, man.
Well, thank you for coming, and yeah, this was pretty fun. As I told you, I haven't been podcasting as I would like to, for many months, and I enjoy a lot this conversations. There's also this, and I mean, just one last idea before letting you go.
Yeah, of course.
There is this idea that I recently read in the same book that I told you about. It's an idea by Aristotle, and it's called eudaimonia, and so it's
I
basically.
have it tattooed actually.
Oh, for real?
Yeah,
Oh,
I do. I have eudaimonia
oh,
tattooed on my
nice.
shoulder.
Nice. Yeah, well, so basically podcasting is, I feel like, part of what makes me live eudaimonia, like in a right way, so to call it. So it's like part of what makes me flourish in life and be fulfilled and feel accomplished. And yeah, thank you for coming and allowing me to live this process again.
Yeah, man, you're a really good interviewer and you're curious and I think you should do more of what makes you happy. Like Aristotle talks about the good life. And
Hmm.
if this helps you experience the good
The
life,
good
do
life.
more of it.
Yeah.